live on my other platforms. I believe I am live now. It says that I am. Hold on, because I got to make sure I do all of the live going things. Hey, y'all, for those of you who are just joining me, huh, there. Oops. Okay, so apparently I'm live on Instagram as well, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. So y'all have no choice but to see me on tonight. Now, what I'm talking about is maybe not the most important of things to talk about, but I think it's something I want to talk about with the people. For those of you who have been following me for a while, you know the extent of my content. Basically, I am. Hold on, I'm trying to share it to some groups because they took that part out. My name is Rhonda Gipson-Willis. If you've been around for a while, you know my story. Was married or together with my ex-husband for like almost 30 years. We got divorced. The divorce separation started initiated when we were 50. And so I've shared a lot about that journey on the internet, mostly to be an example of what the process looks like, right? And so, for all intents and purposes, during the time that I was going through all of the things, I was not only a licensed therapist, which I'm not anymore. I just did not renew my license this year. I did not lose my license or anything. I was a licensed therapist as well as a um, certified coach, and I've done leadership development. I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of work in the personal development field, and in that arena. Um, and so as I was journaling through this process of um, separation and divorce as a 50-year-old woman at the time, um, I just shared. I was transparent about my journey. Now, one thing I was sure to do was not to jump online too early throughout the process, because I understand that not everything is for everyone. Not everyone will understand what your process is. And so my goal is really to be uh, a helper to those who are in the journey, right? I do this work for a living. I also just want people to know that, there is hope on the other side. So, with that being said, I've shared a lot of my journey over the last couple of years. And part of what I've shared has not only been some of the and out parts of it, which I haven't shared a lot of that, but you certainly know that those down and out moments happen. Right? You certainly know that I was in the weeds with this. But what I've done and been really intentional about is sharing like the other side of it. And when I say the other side of it, I mean being on the side now where I have so much joy, peace, and love in my life. And so, um, what I found is that tends to trigger some people, and it's a bit of an interesting phenomenon to watch people get triggered by, um, joy, to watch people get triggered by a process that has nothing to do with them, and for them to come out swinging. And so, obviously, as you know, a mental health professional, as a therapist, as a coach, as someone who's really interested in human behavior, I understand a lot about human behavior. I don't understand everything about human behavior, obviously, because some of this stuff just makes no sense to me. But what I do know is that anytime anyone comes in to say something negative about me, even if it doesn't impact me or if it doesn't bother me, I recognize that there are women who follow me, who have been following my journey, who may be internalizing some of those messages. And so, because of that, I make it a point to sometimes respond, right? I sometimes have a bit of a fun time responding because I'm gonna meet you where I found you, but I don't get in the gutter with you, but I'm gonna let you know, like I see you. For the most part, anyone who responds negatively to me or anything that I do, I basically recognize what's really going on with them. A lot of what's going on with them is that they are not happy. I'll put it that way. They're not happy. I'm trying to see if I see in the post comments. All right. So I don't know if I'll be able to see your comments if you're making comments. So if I don't see them now, I'll come back to them later. But anyway, I want to share some of the things that I have put up with some of the comments that I've gotten, um, just by virtue of a video that I posted. It was a video that I reshared from 2 years ago, and, I was dancing to some song and, just talking about, just being happy. Not happy that I was divorced, being happy, having joy, because if you've ever been on a healing journey, you recognize that as you are going through your healing journey, you are going through some shit. You are going through some shit. And for a lot of that process, you are going through a lot of things that other people have no idea that you're experiencing. A lot of people, women are suffering in silence, men too, from them as well. And when you get to the other side, right? When you get to the other side of that, and you have joy, and you have peace, and you have love, and you are bold enough to share that with the world, it triggers people who, for whatever reason, are threatened by that. Now, I have some theories as to why someone might be threatened by someone being happy or joyful, period. Um, make no bones about it. When I talk about my divorce, I don't talk about my divorce as if it was this evil thing. I talk about it as um, what I knew for myself personally in order to get to the other side of my breakthrough and what I needed personally, that was going to require that I separate from that relationship that I was in. It was the same with my ex-husband. He needed to separate um, from me and the relationship to get his joy, to get his peace, to get his love. We had done all the work, we had done all the things, we had done a lot of things that I don't necessarily share in all of one video when you happen to see me dancing on the TikTok or whatever, but just know that the work has happened. The work has happened, but I find it really interesting, some of the things that people say. And so I want to share some of those things with you all for the purpose of um, awareness, analysis, and we're just going to try and figure out where in the world are these people coming from. So I have a few, for those of you who are on TikTok, you won't be able to see this unless you go to my Instagram or my Facebook or my YouTube. You'll be able to see the comments, but I will definitely read them out loud. Um, one of the things I find really, really, really hilarious is when a stranger, someone who doesn't know you, to tell you about yourself. And that's one of the things sure that I'm real clear when I'm talking with my clients is that you really have to develop a healthy dose of IDGAF as you are navigating your healing process. I don't give a you cannot care about people who don't know, love, or care about you. You can't care about their opinions more than you care about your healing. If you do, your purpose or your process uh, is doomed from the beginning. It's doomed from the beginning. If you care about what strangers have to say about you, and so fortunately for me, I've healed enough where I don't depend upon the applause or the boos of people who don't know me, people who don't care about me, but I know that there are a lot of people who have not yet gotten to that place, and I just wanna encourage you to, do the work so that when you see some of the things that I see, that you do the same things that I do. I'm typically laughing, uh, but what I recognize is happening on the other side of that is that there is a human person, typically a man, who is responding in this way to a stranger, a woman that he does not know, and when I go to his page, because for the most part, Imma go to your page, I wanna see how you living, right? I wanna see who are you, how are you living, who hurt you, who's hurting you, what's your story? For a lot of them, I see pictures of them with families, and I cannot imagine being with a man who is making comments, disparaging comments towards a woman that he does not know. For me, I'm thinking, "Bro, like, what?" I'm gonna reevaluate the relationship, but I would imagine that that wouldn't be something that's a surprise to someone who's in a relationship with someone who's bold enough to come on and say things like that on Beyonce's internet. But anyway, let's get to some of the things that have been said to me and assess whether or not I should care. Okay, so Danielle is asking a question over here. Every so often I get a question. So this is a question on TikTok. Danielle says, "How were you able to walk away?" Um, First of all, I've gone on record as saying a lot that um, my ex-husband is not the villain in this story. I'm not the villain in this story. We were not the people for each other. And because we weren't, we held on for a long time. We did a lot of the work. We went to 2 therapists, together. We had sessions. We had lots of deep conversations. And I was able to walk away at that point, which was 2 days before our 25th anniversary, um, because we had done everything that we could. I think we had done everything that we could, to try and salvage it. And one of the comments I think somebody asked, "Well, if you're gonna leave, why did it take 30 years?" I'm like, "Do you know that people work at this thing? People live life. They go through, um, phases and evolution, and things change." So I'm reading a book this week. By the way, I'm doing a book club, and I'm doing a book club. If you know me, you know I don't read like that, but I'm doing a book club of lazy love. And if you're interested in being a part of the book club, it's in my paid group. And when I say paid group, I'm talking my $25 a month group, where I do group coaching and I also do ask me anything sessions and I do trainings and we have community and things like that. But that is coming in. But as I'm reading this book, Lazy Love, right, is letting me know, it's not letting me know, but it's basically reinforcing a lot of what I know about the context of relationships and how a lot of us get in these places where um, we don't invest enough into our relationship. And when we start to break apart like that, it's hard to get back. And so I see perpetuating divorce and idealizing divorce. And that is absolutely not what I'm doing because if you've been around long enough, you know that part of what I tend to do when someone comes to me, and a lot of people have come to me in their divorce journey, is my goal is to encourage them to work. Like, have you done all the work? And I'll tell you, for me individually, I was dealing with so much mental health turmoil that I knew that if I did not leave, it was just going to get really, really bad. So Danielle said, "You have a gut feeling before saying I do." Um, I was so young, right? I was so young when we got married, and when I say so young, I was 25 when we got married, right? We were both 25, but we got together when we were 21 and 22, and I don't know if I had a gut feeling, but I remember getting married, right? We got married at the courthouse. Um, it just didn't feel like I didn't feel like this was the happiest day of my life, right? I didn't feel like, but make no bones about it, he was my first love. Like, that was the first guy I was like, "Oh my gosh." So, and I guess with that being said, truly love, it it there were a lot of things that happened, very quickly in our relationship. We had children very quickly in our relationship. We met the summer after I graduated from college, and so I graduated from college in, '92. We met that summer, and by January '93, we were pregnant with our first daughter. And so a lot of it was, it wasn't necessarily maybe a gut, but maybe, this wasn't what I planned or how I planned for this thing to go through, right? So Steffi on Instagram says, "Good evening. How did you get through the pain of divorce, knowing your ex has moved on and engaged? When do you get to the other side?" All right. So I don't know if my ex-husband, I don't know what his relationship status is. Um, but because I did the work, I did my own work, I disconnected from um, any of his behaviors or anything that he did and focused completely on me. so that I could do my work. And by do my work, I mean that I leaned into the things that I discussed in my peace blueprint, which are things like um, I chose peace over principle. What I find is a lot of people are so attached to principle of what people should have done or what they should be doing, or he should move on that fast, or he should want to fight for it, or he should whatever that they separate or they give up their peace. And I wasn't willing to do that. And so for me, like getting through the pain of the divorce really looked like I hired a therapist, I hired a coach, I did some deep healing work. I went through the ugly phase of it. I leaned into the fullness of it, and I disconnected my life from I disconnected his actions from my life. I make it about me. If he had moved on, if he got engaged, or he was seeing somebody else, that had nothing to do with me. That was him and his life. I knew that I had to focus on doing my work, and that looked like leaning into choosing forgiveness. So all these things I'm talking about, Steffi, is part of my print, excuse me, that's available at thepeaceblueprint.com, which I think you might see across the screen, thepeaceblueprint.com. It's a six, excuse me, it's a digital program that kind of walks you through my blueprint of the things that I did. So I chose to commit to the process. I chose forgiveness, even when I did not want to forgive, and the person I really had to forgive myself, have to forgive was myself. I chose the work. I chose myself. I chose being self-full, and it feels really, you know, feels sometimes really shitty to say, I chose me, but I had to choose me. If I didn't choose me, no way I would have been able to be the mother that my children needed. I would have been able to be the woman that I needed. I wouldn't have been able to show up how I am right now if I had not chosen to fill up my cup. And so I was very intentional about that. Even when, even when I did not feel that I was worthy of the healing, when I did not feel that it was going to work, when I did not feel that, when I felt like God had forgotten about me, even when I had all of those things stacked against me from a mental perspective, an emotional perspective, I still leaned in and did the work. So that's how I healed through the pain. That's how I got through the other side. Um, and for those of you who are on Instagram, I still have my consults open. I'm going to close those really soon. Consultation, no cost consultations. If you signed up for one, I think I'm taking them through the first week of November. Um, but it's an opportunity if you want to work with me and delve a little further into some of that. You can sign up. Only sign up if you know that you're ready to do the work. Don't sign up if you want to ask me a question. I will be having Q&A and opportunities to do that, like through this. But if you sign up for those consults, that lets me know you're ready to work. But for my Instagram people, if you comment consult, you'll get the link sent straight to your inbox, your messenger that will tell you all about that. But anyway, so that's what I did. That's what I did to get on the other side. I also allowed myself to feel joy. I allowed myself to be. I allowed myself to receive God's love. I allowed myself to accept grace. I gave myself grace. I gave my ex-husband grace. It's so much easier to get through the process and get through the anger because I did have an angry season. You probably hear about that in the book. I did have an angry season, but I allowed myself to have that, and I allowed myself to get through that. Does that answer your question, Steph? Right. So, Tiff Nielsen, what advice would you give for newly engaged couples? Oh, I love this because this is really why I'm here. I'm here to be a cautionary tale. I'm here to say if I were to do this all over again, this is what I would do. Newly engaged couples, I would say, learn yourselves, learn who you are individually before you become a couple. If you are already a couple, still do your work. There's nothing wrong with having wise counsel. Um, and when I say wise counsel, I'm not talking about your mama now. I'm not talking about, your friend and them who are completely subjective. I'm talking about people who don't know you, but who are wise counsel, wise counsel, therapists, uh, couples retreats, things like that. Make sure that you are connecting with people in spaces are just giving you a pass because they know you or they think they know you. The beauty of an objective person, right, as a therapist and as a coach, one of the things that people seek me for is the objectivity. I don't know you, and so because I don't know you, I'm asking questions that are curiosity based, and far too often people presume that other people know them or they know people, and so they don't ask the right questions. And so I would say also that not assume that you know your partner. Always, always promote trust. And when I say trust, I'm not just talking about predictive trust. I'm talking about develop vulnerability trust. And vulnerability trust looks like being able to create a safe space for each other where you can share your deepest fears, where you can share your highest hopes, where you can get in a space where you can admit your wrongs and not have it held against you, right? And so, and having agreements around what that safe space looks like, how we honor vulnerability with each other allows us to lean into an intimacy that we can't survive without. There are a lot of relationships that don't have intimacy because they don't have true vulnerability trust. So I would say do the work to learn each other. Um, Unconditional love is a real thing. Unconditional acceptance of the BS is not. It's a way to look like to hold space for your partner, even when they're getting on your nerves. To have the other thing I would say for a newly engaged couple is have agreements about how you are going to fight because you're going to have a fight. You're going to have miscommunications. How are you going to resolve conflicts? How are you going to lean into supporting each other and being there for each other, even if they on your last nerve? Fighting fair. How are you? How? This is a good one. How do you want to be protected in this relationship? Right? How do you want to be covered? Um, just have the conversations are easier to have up front than they are to find out the hard way. There are a lot of ways for couples to have a really good, meaningful dialogue. I will get those conversation starter cards and start with that. But you have to have vulnerability space because there are a lot of people who are in relationships with people that they don't know. There are a lot of people who are in relationships with people that they don't trust. There are a lot of people who are in relationships with people that they don't like. You gotta know, like, and trust the people that you're with, and you only really get that if they're able to see the real version of you. I would say that in my relationship, I felt like there was some assumptions of who I was that were not true assumptions. So let me give, IG a heads up. This may cut off if this cuts off IG, find me on, TikTok or Instagram. I'm on TikTok as Shift Queen, and you'll be able to see the rest of it. Because it has a time limit on there. I'm not sure what time I have. But allow yourselves to really lean into learning each other. Learn each other. Learn. Learn how to communicate effectively. Most of us have been talking all of our lives, but we don't know how to communicate. Is what I said what you heard? And if what I said is not what you heard, I don't need to keep saying the same thing. I need to change how I say what it was. Or I need to ask you, what did you hear me say? How do you hold space for each other? So that's what I would say. That was a really good question, Danielle. But that's what I would say to a new couple. And there are a lot of other things that I would say because again, that's where I put my therapist and my coach hat on. But also the cautionary tale of the things that I would go back and tell 22-year-old version of me. I wish that there were things I could tell her. And one of the things I would tell her was make sure you really know and understand yourself before you take on all of these other titles. before I really understood and knew who Rhonda was, I became someone's mother. I became someone's wife. I became somebody's employee. I became all these things to other people that I didn't know who I was for myself. And so I would definitely say that that is one of the major things that I would say. And you can do a really good job of learning about yourselves together, but I would caution you against learning too much about yourself apart. So experience life together, but for the most part, talk, right? Talk, talk, talk about do check-ins. Far too often things go ahead, and when they go unsaid, they create resentments. They create resentments. We create clever stories in our heads about the the intentions of other people. And when we do that, we are now responding to a caricature that we created. And so that's what I would say to a newly engaged couple. Because do I think that my ex-husband and I had a chance at making it if we had done some of these things? If we had a me, if I knew then what I know now, if we had gone to a good therapist at the time, because I tell you, one of the therapists that we went to was not a good therapist, and um, yeah, I would have done those things. Those are some of the things I would have done, and we perhaps could have made it. And it's not that I regret that we're not together, because, it is what it is. We live, we learn. Um, but all right, so I wanna talk about some of these things I contend with, some of the things that people have said to me that I know that other women are listening or hearing in their lives. And the thing that's really interesting to me is that it never ceases to amaze me and unpleasantly surprise me at how low some men will go when they see a woman who's happy, and then they wonder why women are leaving marriages at 50 years old after putting up with some of these behaviors that they tend to normalize. And so I'm not saying all of the men or all the people who end up getting divorced, but I'm saying that there is this acceptance, I think, of this attitude of misogynoir and misogyny, where there are a lot of men who are with women, and these men don't like women. They don't like a lot of because the men who are showing up in my comment section, who are speaking to me in the ways that they're speaking to me, when they see me happy and dancing with joy, you cannot convince me that they like women. And that means love women, have an affinity towards women, respect women. Because if they did, they would not be on the internet just saying some of these things. So let me share a couple of these. So this one guy, Marcus Nathaniel, he said, "I'll never understand women, fellas. Please don't ever get married. They will stay with you for 30 years, wasting your time just to leave because she want to get ran through by young ninjas." Now, here's the thing. If you say you'll never understand women, you start off with, "I'll never understand women." To me, that says it's time to lean in and do your homework. It's time to lean in and go, maybe there's something I don't know. Let me lean in with curiosity. Let me ask the women, "Hey, so help me understand what's going on." But instead, he made assumptions. And if you make assumptions, right? If that's how you jump on the internet or jump into conversations, then you are really setting yourself up for antagonistic response. Now, I'm not going to be antagonistic because I don't care enough to fight with this man. But what I'm saying is, why would you say that? He says, "I'll never understand women. Men don't get married. They'll stay with you and waste 30 years of your time." I would say this: I did not waste that man's time, and he did not waste mine. We had a time, and the time ended. So very all or nothing thinking ish, right? That response is so very all or nothing thinking that It's just really interesting, really interesting. So let me see what one another one of them. So that dude happy. That dude happy. That dude happy said, "Could bet is a male individual help with that clarity you all thinking you will find off your own." I'm not really sure what he's saying other than, if I were to assume what he meant by that, it is that women didn't find our clarity on our own that we needed it from a man, and apparently from an unclear man who, who underestimates a woman's ability to have her own agency. And so, when you have someone who says, "You didn't find your own clarity," how dismissive is that? Again, these are the things that I hear on the internet. Relent Liz once said, "You people crazy. That ain't no accomplishment." And so what he's talking about is this notion that he's assuming that what I'm celebrating during my journey is the divorce, and there are some people who celebrate their divorces, and I say, whatever you want to celebrate is what you want to celebrate. I've never gotten on the internet and celebrated my divorce. I'm not saying that I won't ever, but the thing that I've celebrated is my healing. And so, for a man to be so singularly focused on what they believe is important, which is uh, staying married or staying in a state of a place where I expressed that I was miserable, to attack the piece on the other side and say that's crazy is crazy to me. I don't understand. I don't understand why are they so triggered by happiness and joy? Yana Two Fly says, "Hello, this sounds so ignorant." And illiterate one shaking my head. And you can see the comments. I'm not making these up. They're on my I was in a orange shirt dancing to a song, and that particular video, I think it has over 500,000 views right now, which explains why I got so much vitriol. Um, and keep in mind, I've also gotten some really positive comments from a lot of nice men, some men who want to know, like, how do I make sure that I'm not in this situation where my wife is unhappy? And here's the thing, there are people who are assuming that um, I just woke up one day and said to my ex-husband, "I'm not happy, I'm out of here." He knew. He was not blindsided. We had had discussions, we'd had conversations. I'd asked him in July, 6, 5 months earlier, if he thought we'd be better as friends, and he agreed that we'd likely be better as friends. And so for the men who would like to say that, that I just woke up one day, or that any woman who would see my video, which is what I think is really like, who do they think we are? Any woman who would see my video would just be like, "You know what? She's dancing to Beyonce. She's got a smile on her face. She's divorced. Maybe divorce is for me. I'm happy, but maybe I should get." Nobody's doing that. Nobody's jumping out of a happy marriage because they see a woman on TikTok doing a dance. I promise you that. And if they are, they should not have been married in the first place. They should not have been married in the first place. And so I say that to say that um I'm not on the internet perpetuating divorce. I've probably saved more marriages. I know for sure that I've saved more marriages than most of you know, because one of the things that happens when you are really public about your journey is that people feel comfortable sharing their struggles with you. And there are a lot of people who are smiling, who are couples, who are everybody's goals, who are looking real good on the internet, but they are struggling. They are struggling, and they're this close to breaking up, and a lot of them have consulted with me. I've had conversations with a lot of you. I've had a conversation with a lot of you wives, and I've told them, "You gotta do your work. You gotta go in. You gotta make sure you're taking care of yourself. You gotta take care of him." Kids if you have kids, and this is what nobody told me. Nobody told me when I had my kids. Your kids cannot come first. Your kids can absolutely not come first. Um, and so, yeah, so that's not the thing that, I'm perpetuating joy. I'm perpetuating growth. I'm perpetuating healing because I came from a really super dark place. And those two things they weren't necessarily blended in together, but they also weren't mutually exclusive. And I knew that I was not going to make it in the context of that relationship. Um, so yeah, so I had to do what worked for my healing journey. So this one, Look Shell said, "Don't need a man, fine. The welfare state is your man." So if I were to use my deductive reasoning skills, I would assess that this man is saying that the only reason a woman needs a man is to keep her off welfare. If I were to read that right, that represents a huge issue where a man, perhaps this man believes that his only contribution to the woman in his uh, life is financial or a roof over it's more than that. It's more than and I'll tell you, if you're in a marriage, it takes more than love. Like, you have to have trust, you have to have respect, uh, you have to work together as a team to say the welfare state is your man. Keep in mind, I don't have a man right now, and I am not on welfare. Sir, kind look shell. So Yana Two Fly said, "Dark ages, anyone? They're crazy." I'm telling you that. So here's part of the reason I share this, because if I were not as healed as I am, some of the comments that I encounter online would be emotionally devastating, and the lack of consideration for that is very troubling to me. It's very troubling to me that people get on the internet and poke at people when you don't know. I mean, we understand that that's kind of what it is with the internet, and so I understand why a lot of people don't do what it is that I do. But I also recognize that I'm strong enough to take it because I don't care what anybody says about me on the internet. I'm good. I've done the healing work. I recognize that what I say and how I show up is not for everybody, and it's definitely not to preach anybody into a divorce. There are a lot of women who are in this phase of their life who are over 50 years old, who are dealing with life after a divorce and who are struggling. I'm here to show you that you don't have to be in a state of perpetual sadness, hurt, anger, bitterness. Um, because I've had clients who've said, I just can't let go of what he did to me. If you can't let go of what he did to you, you are acquiescing, you are relinquishing the control over your life to someone else, because until he does right, you will always harbor that. And so I'm here to show you, like, you can do the work, you can move on, you can be happy, you can have joy. You can dance on Beyonce's internet and not care what anybody has to say about it. Oh, and this one said, "Imono Udia, E Imo, I can't spell." He said, "She's the problem." I've admitted I was absolutely the problem. I was part of the problem. My ex-husband was also part of the problem. It takes two to tango. We both, and I won't say we ruined a perfectly good marriage because our marriage was never perfectly good. I don't think any marriage is perfectly good, but I think that there's a lot to be said about the healthy foundation that you have. And there are people who do you made a vow before God, you did, and to that I say, I do not believe that God put my marriage together. I don't think this is the guy that God chose for me. I think God covered us well. So I thank him for that. He covered us well. Um, but yeah, we both had responsibilities in the end. Rudell Christopher said, I guess that was the goal. Joy, peace, and happiness? Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the thing that I know, because I want to be realistic. In the context of any relationship, you're not going to have perfection. There's always going to be issues. There's going to be things that you're going to have to work through, you're going to have to deal with, you're going to have to contend with. But uh, no, the goal was not divorce. When I got married, I assumed I was gonna be married for the rest of my life. Well, let me stop. Not when I got married, but, after I'd been married for a certain number of years, I assumed that I was going to be married the rest of my life. I absolutely did. So, no, that was not the goal. One guy, he looked at the video and he said, "Definitely moves like you're 52." Okay. Like, he just being rude for no reason, and I was 52 at the time. I'm okay with moving like I'm 52. I'm okay with that. If it was so horrible, why stay 30 years? That's a very immature comment. That's a comment from someone who doesn't understand, how relationships transition, how they grow, how they ebb and flow. And I'll say, throughout the course of the nearly 30 years that we were together, we went through a lot of ebbing and flowing. There were several years that we didn't like each other. There were some years that we really liked each other. And then we got to a point where we couldn't figure it out anymore. And so once we did sufficient work to save it, right? Because I would imagine that if we had broken up in year 2, you'd have said, "Why just take it out?" There's always something. Um, so Ike Boggs said, "Never consult with failed marriage handlers unless you want your marriage to fail. Promises of freedom, no perfect partner. Let's not normalize divorce." All right. So here's what I want to say to this one. I actually made a video in response to this one. First of all, I don't think I was a failed marriage handler. I think my marriage ended. It didn't fail. It did what it came to do. But keep in mind, at the time, I was a licensed therapist. I'm still a certified coach. I've helped many people. And the thing about this comment is that it does not take into effect that um, the gifts that God gives us are not contingent upon our circumstances. God uses any and everybody. And I will tell you that in spite of the struggles that I was going through when I was super depressed, when I was super anxious, I was helping other people get breakthroughs in their lives that I did not have for myself, because I was leaning on my gift. I'm incredibly gifted in the area that God has given me gifts, and I steward my gifts well. And what I mean by that is I do the work to make sure that I am competent, that I am a servant leader, that I help other people. I don't bleed all over people, but I help other people in ways that maybe I have to depend on other people to help me. And so I say that to say, if you're counting on someone to be perfect to help you, you'll discount some very good options and opportunities for yourself. Because I tell you, I could bless your whole life, and I will never be perfect at anything. I will fail at a lot of things. But the one thing I do is I let the good Lord use me. I'm gonna let God use me. I'm gonna pray before sessions. I'm gonna pray during sessions. I'm gonna pray after sessions. I'm gonna be like, "Oh yeah, okay, guys, anything else you want me to do?" And He comes through. So your marriage made you depressed and have anxiety. So what's next? Finding true love? Shaking my head. How disrespectful, right? How disrespectful, and I say disrespectful to anyone who's dealing with anxiety or depression. I never once said that my marriage made me anxious or depressed. I will say that it likely that relationship and some of the what was happening in it was starting to get really toxic, contributed to um, me staying in that space, made it hard for me to get out of being depressed and anxious. And when I say toxic, I'm not just saying that my ex-husband was toxic. I was saying I've often admitted to my behavior, some of the things that I did that were emotionally abusive, like the silent treatment. I would literally go a week, 2 weeks without talking to that man. Now, part of it, right, was fueled by anxiety. Part of it was fueled by depression, but some of it was fueled by I don't want to say another word because I'm not sure what the next thing is I'm going to say. If I say something, I'm probably going to cuss everybody out. You ain't going to hear what I have to say. And part of it was because I knew that I knew that he didn't like the way that that felt. So for me, right, and I didn't really realize those things till I got outside of it. How there were things that obviously it's easy to point the finger at somebody else. but to look at yourself and go, okay, what did I do in the context of that relationship? There are several things that I did, and I'll talk about that. Y'all can read it in the book when the book comes out. But um, I've never professed to be perfect. My ex-husband never professed to be perfect, but I will say that what's next? Finding true love, absolutely. And that true love was with myself. My goal was not to hop into another relationship. I have no interest in being in a relationship for the purpose of being in a relationship. I've spent some time with some very fine gentlemen since my divorce. But finding true love, I did. I found true love. I fell head over heels in love with myself, which does not allow me to be in situations or environments with other people that don't have that same type of love for me. What's happening too often is people going from one relationship straight into another trying to fill a hole. I was like, I'm not doing that. And so, yes, finding true love was the goal. And you can shake your head if you want to, but it worked. I love me some me. All right. Edward Powers, 61, said, and the saddest part about this, we celebrate after breaking a vow with the Most High God, not man. We break a vow with the Most High God. When we celebrating, how sad can this be? Team Powers. I think I said this before. You ain't go. You're not. I'm not celebrating breaking a vow with God. I'm celebrating that God got me on the other side of this healing. I fasted and prayed for this healing. When I tell you, I fasted so hard, I passed out twice. Literally passed out twice from fasting and praying for my breakthrough. That's what I'm celebrating. And if you don't have an understanding of what that's like, you don't understand what the darkness. If you've ever been in that darkness and come out to the other side, then you'd understand what the true celebration is. And so for anybody, don't let anybody tell you what you can or cannot celebrate in your life, because I'm telling you, it was worth the celebratory dance. Anytime you see me celebrating, please know, because I come through a depth. I come through a depth of pain and depression and anxiety that I wouldn't wish on anybody. And so when you come to the other side and you get your breakthrough and you experience the light, oh yeah, you go celebrate. So if you don't know why I'm celebrating, just be glad that you've not had that experience. All right. This one says 25 years of marriage. You're just another failure and you not smart either. Also responded to this one. Listen, I ain't never had nobody who's smarter than me tell me I'm not smart. Because one thing I'm not is a dummy, but it's it's the audacity for me. I find it real like that comment just cracked me up. It cracked me up. I'm gonna laugh at my naysayers a little bit. All right, so Kay Broadus said, why is divorce always a celebration for women? It seems devastating as hell for men. All right, so here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say to that. And I'll use a couple of kind of research-based things and maybe some anecdotal things. I think that for women, women are more likely to seek support, to seek um, to do the work. Women are more likely to lean into doing the healing work. I'll say that. And what a lot of women will celebrate in that instance is um, having the opportunity to do so. Now, I have seen some videos of women who are celebrating divorce, but I think you have to ask yourself as a man, why do you think it is that women seem more excited to get out of toxic marriages? When men are devastated in when the woman leaves. Now, anecdotally, I could say that a lot of the women who are excited leaving are leaving a situation where they know they're going to be better. A lot of men maybe don't. I'm not going to say a lot of men because that's very broad scopish. But okay, I'm about to say a thing. I'm gonna say a thing, and it may be controversial, but I'm going to say a thing. I think that a lot of male culture, a lot of what we ascribe as masculine behavior is very toxic. And so we talk about toxic masculinity a lot. Maybe not a lot. I don't talk about it a lot. But I think that a lot of what's been normalized as this is just how men are is very toxic behavior. Where men will believe, oh, I'm just being a man is very detrimental to a lot of the women whose lives you're in. And so I think that there are perhaps some occasions where men don't recognize just how toxic their behaviors are towards the women in their lives. Like I said, a lot of these men who are commenting, sending these comments to me, they have wives, they have daughters. I see them wishing their wives happy anniversaries on their Instagram posts because I will go and look. I'm go look and see like who is this person who's coming to me like that? And so I cannot believe that the only woman that they are talking this kind of junk to is a random stranger on the internet. And so what I would say in terms of that is that if more men would do their work, and by do their work I mean do your healing, go to therapy, develop relationships with men who hold you accountable, who don't allow you to just do some of this to do the things that you do. So I'm gonna tell you guys this. So I recently went to the Bahamas. I went on a stayed in a beautiful hotel resort, and I was with a friend, and this friend was talking to another male who was there. And this man who was there basically said about his female companion, oh, we're just here. This trip is like the trip where I decide to either break up with her or that I'm going to marry her. I'm either going to break up with this bitch or I'm going to marry her. That's what he said. And as I was talking to my friend, I said, I would never want to be in any type of situation like that with somebody who basically does not like me, but tolerates me and is willing to enter into a long-term relationship with me, brought her on a very beautiful vacation only to talk about her like that. And so I'd imagine if they end up married, that it probably won't end well. And when it doesn't end well, he may think that he did her a favor by marrying her in the first place. I could have broke up with you. To which I say, do your work. Men, why would you want to be with somebody you didn't like? And there are a lot of men who don't really like women. And I'm not saying that in a homosexual type way. I'm saying you have a lot of disdain, a lot of men who have disdain towards women that are likely the result of unresolved issues that they've had with other women or their moms or someone else, and they're victimizing the women in their lives and expecting them to sit around and take it. But also, so that was anecdotal. So that's just me just presupposing because I don't know. Why is divorce always a celebration for women? It seems devastating as hell for men. Um, but the research also says that men tend to benefit more from marriage than women do. Men are the happiest people are married men and single women with no children. Those are the happiest people statistically. Good evening, beautiful hermit. All right, so let me see what the next one says. Oh, so um Eric and Jerk said, so he was the problem, or you was your own problem, and he the only one around to take it out on. He was with Joe depressed ass for 30 years. Y'all women are trip. Oh my gosh, the lack of empathy, the lack of empathy. Why would you say something like that to somebody? This man don't know me from nobody. He does not know my ex-husband. He does not know our story, but he was bold enough to go on Beyonce's internet and say such a thing, right? He was with your depressed ass for 30 years. He was with your depressed ass for 30 years. The lack of compassion, right? And so when we think about um, the type of man who would expect that a woman would stay with him in spite of that type of behavior, I would imagine it's the type of man that comes on and says those types of things to a woman like me, who has not disparaged my I've not disparaged my ex-husband at all. I've taken accountability for my part. I don't cause problems on the internet. I don't talk about people. I don't do now I do respond to emails to comments like this. But the fact that there are men who will say things like that and then are scratching their head like, why are all the women leaving? Sir, you've answered your own question. I could put a mirror up to the lack of compassion, the lack of empathy, the lack of um, just regard, the lack of regard. And so what's happening is too many women have sat in these spaces of that toxic stew. And once you hit 40, 45, 50, you go, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. So yeah, I just thought um I would share some of the foolishness that is, I think, further validation to the people who are questioning or curious as to why so many women over the age of 50 are ending up divorced. It has a whole name. It's called the Great Divorce. It's called the Great Divorce. Um, but I believe it's happening for a couple of different reasons, a few different reasons. One, we are not the generation before us who lacks the options that a lot of our foremothers had, where they could not afford to opt out of a marriage or a relationship. They didn't have not only the ability financially to, but it was just a lot going on. And there are women who are still contending with some of those limitations right now. So I don't want to minimize the reality of that. But once you get 50, once your children are grown, once you start looking around and go, this is what I'm going to deal with. So what I would say to the men who are in my comments, um, pay attention. Pay attention. When there is something that she is asking of you that's related to care, consideration, um, regard, respect, any of those things, pay attention. Lean in and do it. Or you face the threat of ending up in a place that perhaps you don't want to be. Or maybe some of you secretly want to be there. So with that, I just wanted to share some of those things because again, I find them I find it hilarious, but at the same time, I find it sad for people and women who don't have the type of healing that I have to get through to the other side and not let that permeate. It doesn't permeate me. Every last one of those comments that I read, they don't bother me at all, not one bit. Um, but I did want to again reinforce that I'm doing lazy love. I promise y'all, I wasn't planning on doing a book club. I went to church on Sunday, and they were selling the church. I attend Lighthouse Church. Pastor Keon's my pastor, and they were selling the book, so I bought the book. And while I was sitting in church, I heard the word book club. And so when I got home that day, I announced to my group, "Hey, we're going to do a book club, and I'm offering it as an option for you." Now I have a group. I have a paid group where I do group coaching, where I do a Q&A, where we build community around the healing journey. And I have a basic level admission price of $25 a month to access that. And you can get there through yourpeaceacademy.com. It's running across the screen, yourpeaceacademy.com. But we're starting with this tomorrow, 7 p. Central Standard Time. I know it's going to be a little late, but we'll run it for 5 weeks. Next week, we won't be doing the book club because I'll be out of town. But I think that this book, the title is Lazy Love: Recognizing and Reversing the Four Threats to Any Successful Relationship. We're going to talk about that because I'm not just peddling don't do relationship. I really, like we want to do healthy relationships. In this group, I talk about attachment styles. I talk about love languages. I talk about disc. I talk about becoming a leader for yourself. I talk about what real love is. There's like 8 categories of love and how we get caught up in some of these categories and make these false equivalencies about what it is that we desire in our lives. And I talk about healing. So if that's something that you're interested in, yourpeaceacademy.com is going to be the most bang for your buck from a healing perspective. You would definitely get your money's worth, and you will get the opportunity to navigate a healing journey and grow with women who are doing the same. So, if you want to do the book club, we're doing it in there. And but if you want to stick around in that group, $25 a month, we're doing the I do group coaching and teaching and all of that good stuff. Q&A, you can ask me anything. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and log out, and I'll see y'all maybe tomorrow. Well, I'll see those of you who sign up for the book club tomorrow. Yourpeaceacademy.com. Yourpeaceacademy.com. That's where you'll find all the registration information for the book club. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all later. Peace out.